Hi there, this is Subbu. Welcome to new video of the Always On Availability Group series. Today we are going to cover complete about how to configure Always On Availability Group over Azure platform. So where we have built completely VMs in Azure. So before you go and watch this video, so in our channel we already discussed about what is the always on availability group, what are the enhancement done on always on availability group. Before that, you just go to this playlist and just watch our channel SQL Server always on series. You will find the what is always on, what are the enhancement done on each version. Now let's go into the configuration. So I we already configure three virtual machines. One virtual machines which is acting as a domain controller, and two virtual machines which are acting as our nodes, means replicas. So I already connected all three VMs in the multi-disk software. So out of this, first let me go and connect to the DC server. So as it is acting both, it's acting as a Active Directory server, it is acting as a domain controller, and also it is acting as a Windows failure cluster as well. So I already configured Windows failure cluster, and it's a two node cluster. So currently, which is running on the two node. So if you have any queries, so how to build Windows failure cluster, and from the scratch level, again you can go and follow our YouTube channel where we already created how to build Windows failure cluster. So when you go to the video series, so where you have lot many videos out of this, we already discussed about how to build the Windows failure cluster on Azure. So you can go and watch, so that you will get better idea how to build the Windows failure cluster. Once you build the Windows failure cluster, on top of that, we are going to configure always on availability. So it's a two node cluster. Currently, two nodes are active and which are currently running. And current node is node one is uh, active owner. But this is completely a different on always on availability group. So I already installed standalone SQL server in node 1 and node 2, because currently node 1 and node 2 is which is acting as a replicas. So DC is like a different, it's a domain controller server, it is active directory server, and it is a clustered server where I completely configure cluster. Node 1 and node 2 which is acting as a always, so this is going to part of replicas, and where we are installed standalone SQL installation. So the major enhancement done on the SQL Server always on SQL Server 2012, that is where you can install standalone SQL Server on top of Windows failure cluster, so that you can store your data in the local disk. That is a major enhancement done. So I already installed the standalone SQL installation. So before I go and configure always on availability group, what are the major prerequisites? Means first you need to enable always on availability group from the SQL Server services. So first try to open configuration manager and go to the SQL services and double click on the SQL services. Go to always on availability group, enable always on availability group, where you will get the cluster name, and click on OK and restart the SQL services. This is the major prerequisites. So before you go and configure always on availability group, if you wanted to configure always on availability group, we need to enable the always on availability group from the SQL Server configuration manager and the SQL Server services level on all participated replicas. Means in my scenario, so currently I'm having two node replica. So both nodes I need to enable the always on availability group. So open the configuration manager, double click on the SQL services, and enable the failure cluster always on availability group, and restart the SQL services. Once you enable and restart the SQL services, we are good to configure always on availability group. Now let's connect to the node 1 where I already opened SQL Server Management Studio and I connected both node 1 and node 2. So when I expand both nodes, node 1, node 2, currently there is no always on availability group which is configured. Even when you go and verify under the roles also, currently there is no always on availability group role is available. Now let's go on configure always on availability group. So before I go and configure, I need to first create the databases. So currently there are no databases. Now I'm making node 1 as a primary, node 2 as a secondary. Now let's go and create databases. Let me go and create a databases, a couple of databases, DB1. So let's make it as a owner, SA, and make sure that your recovery model should be full. Recovery model should be full and just click on OK. So let me go and create one more database, DB2. Okay, and make it as also owner as a SA. So currently two databases as I was being created, database DB1, DB2. Let's go and start configuring always on availability group on these databases. So if before you go and configure, so you mustn't should collect what is your always on availability group name, what is the listener name, listener IP address, listener port number, how many databases are going to participate in always on availability group. So there are lot many prerequisites before you go and configure always on availability group. So, so first I will show you one by one. So whenever you right click on always on availability group, click on new always on availability group wizard. So first it will ask creating a new availability group. So we are performing lot many things here in this wizard. So first go and click on next and provide always on availability group name AAZ. Okay. So prod. So this is my availability group. Always on availability prod is my availability group. And cluster type is Windows failure cluster. Cluster type is Windows failure cluster. If you wanted to enable the database level health detection, we are good to enable the DB level health check detection. Otherwise, you can ignore this DB level detection. So we'll discuss further what is DB level health check detection, okay, in the next coming videos. So from here I'm not enabling any database level health check detection. I selected Windows failure cluster and provided the availability group name, then click on next. See, be, before I go and add this database to the always on availability group, you mustn't should take at least one full backup, at least one full backup. Otherwise, your databases cannot be added to the always on availability group. So this is also one of the major prerequisites. So let's go and take the full backup first on both databases. On both databases, let me go and take the full backup. So I'm going to take default location, okay, and select verify backup whenever finished and select the backup is compressed. Please don't take copy only backup. Okay, first backup should be traditional backup. Just let's go and take the DB1 backup is done, sir. Now let's go and take DB2 backup as well. Yep. So almost we are good to configure always on availability group. Yep. Okay. Okay, let's go for default. Let's go and take yes. So DB2 backup is also full backup is completed. Now open open always on dashboard wizard and just refresh. Now it is showing meets the prerequisites. Now means we are good to add this database to the part of always on availability group. Let's go and select always on both databases, then click on next, and here is the main wizard where you need to be more careful whenever you are trying to configure always on availability group. First here you need to select how many replicas are going to participate in this cluster, this means always on availability group. Select all the replicas and select automatic failover, and both are in synchronous. If you want to make readable secondaries, enable read intent only, so that where it can listener can point to the current node whenever you are performing read operations. Whenever you are performing read read operations, and go to the endpoints. As everyone knows that, okay, always on availability group is enhancement of the database mirroring. Our database mirroring is also working with the endpoints. Our always on availability group is also working with the endpoints, and by default endpoint is 5022. Can I change the endpoint number? Yes, sir. You can go and change the endpoint number. If you want your project required, we can good to change the endpoint number. And backup preferences, so we'll take a separate session for backup preferences. We have lot many options are available: preferred secondary, secondary only, primary, and any replica, and backup purity as well. So currently, as of now, I'm going for default option, preferred secondary, one of the finest feature, enhanced feature on always on availability group when you compare with database mirroring, where we can go and take the backups in the secondary replica. There are couple of compatibilities which we are going to cover in the next next video. Sorry. So now let's go and configure listener. One of the great enhancement done when you compare with the database mirroring is virtual name. Virtual name. So let's go and create the listener name. Provide the listener name AAZL prod is my listener name, and what my SQL port is 1433. I am also providing 1433. So can I change the listener port number? Yes, sir, you can change the listener port number. Once you change the listener port number, you need to enable the firewalls. You need to enable the firewalls. And let's go and create the IP address. So listener IP address is, this is my subnet 10.1.0.0. Let's go and keep 10.1.0.0 10. Let me go and create my listener IP address is 10.1.0.10. So definitely your network team will provide the IP address of your listener. That should not be duplicate. It should be unique IP address. Then click on OK, then click on next, and if you wanted to set the read only routings, we are good to set the read only routings. Then as we are going to cover in a different session about readable secondaries and read only routings. Now we have to perform initial synchronization. So we have different approaches here. Using auto seeding from SQL Server 2016, Microsoft enhanced the one more method called auto seeding. Or if you can tell to SQL, take the full backup, take the log backup, and move to the secondary and restore it secondary and join the database into availability group. And we can also inform to SQL Server to take the traditional approach as well. It's like a VDA backup, VDA kind of backup. It's a streaming level. So where Microsoft enhanced a lot with auto seeding as well. Okay, and you already taken the backup and you already initialized it in the secondary. Let's go and join the databases. No, currently when I go to the secondary, currently I don't have any databases on the secondary. So let's tell to SQL Server, take the backup, take the log backup, take the full backup, and configure the configure always on availability group by taking full backup and log backup and move to the secondary and restore it and add database to the secondary replica. So let's go and create one common folder. Let's go and create a common folder and share it. Let me go to the C drive and let me create a common folder, sir. For let me tell it as a backups AAG, and let me share it. Let me share it. So let me shade to service account. So let me go and verify what is my service account. SQL 99 is my service account. Let's go and add SQL 99. Let's add my account and perform both read write operations and click on share and click on done on close. Now let me go to the SQL Server Management Studio. Let me browse and let me expand here. You will see my network folder. Select the network folder, click on OK, then click on next. Okay, so everything is perfect. Now just click on next. So it is going to take the full backup and log backup to this network folder, and it is trying to restore from this network folder and make the install synchronization and add the database to the always on availability group. Click on finish. So you can click on more details. You will get lot many details where we are currently standing. You will get complete information. Successfully done. We are good to configure. Almost we configure always on availability group. When I click on close, go to here and just try to refresh both replicas, node 1 and node 2. Refresh node 1 and node 2. You can expand the databases. Now both databases are in synchronized, and you can expand always on availability group. You will see AAZ prod is my availability group, and how many replicas are there? Two node replicas it is. How many databases? Two databases. And this is my listener. Let's go and connect with the listener. AAZL hyphen prod. AZL hyphen prod. Now I was able to connect to the directly from the listener. Whenever you connect to the listener, directly it will point to the primary replica. And also when you go to the cluster, when you go to the cluster failure cluster manager, you will see under Windows failure cluster, under roles, you will see the always on availability group name. And also you will see when you click here, when you go to the summary, you will get what is your role, which is the owner, and what is your network name, that is nothing but listener name, and which IP address it is pointing. Let's go and try to connect with the IP address as well. 10.1.0.10 is my listener IP address. Let's go and try it once with listener IP address as well. Yeah, we are able to connect with the IP address as well. Not only with the network name, you can also try to authenticate the SQL server with IP address. With IP address. Yeah. Yep. So you can expand always on availability group. Okay, you can right click on here, click on show dashboard. So now you will get complete always on availability group configuration. So here you can see what is the status of your always on availability group and node details, and what is the cluster state, cluster type, how many nodes are available, how many databases are available. Yeah, thanks. Hope this video will help you a lot. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and click the bell icon to get further videos notification. Thank you.